This episode of Grounded in Maine is sponsored by ESG Review. ESG Review magazine is published quarterly in February, May, August, and November, and is available for free in print and digital formats. ESG Review is devoted to environmental, social, and governance strategies, technologies, and investments. ESGreview.net is updated every Wednesday with 8 new stories and is home to feature articles, news items, and more. Visit esgreview.net to stay informed and help us spark the collaboration and awareness needed to develop sustainable economies and communities around the world.
There's a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. This is a bonus episode, and it is in honor of Earth Day, and it is coming out a day late, but Earth Day was a busy day. So I had this conversation with Pamela Tanner Boll, who you're going to learn all about in this episode. But so she executive produced and directed, and this was all her idea, to make this documentary called To Which We Belong, about regenerative agriculture. And it is so inspiring, and it is so needed right now. And so I didn't want to wait to put this out. It's a long episode. We had an amazing conversation. And to make I was intimidated, honestly, to do this episode, to, talk to Pamela, because I'm not super well versed on, I did not know about regenerative agriculture before seeing the documentary, but I felt like I needed to make the best, take advantage of the opportunity of having this super important person on my podcast to promote the documentary. So I invited Adam Cohen, who was a past guest a couple months ago, because he's in the agriculture business, and so he would sort of make me look smart, but also, just have some really good questions to take advantage of the opportunity of having Pamela here. So I have Pamela and I have Adam both on this conversation. It is so incredible. I learned so much, and I was so thrilled to have both of them in the same place, and also just to have Pamela share all of this information. It is just it's so important. And I thought, with Earth Day, I'm going to call it Earth Week celebration, because it's still the weekend, and I didn't want to hold on to this. I just really want to get it out. And so this is my conversation with Pamela and Adam. I hope you guys get so much out of this. I hope you love it. Please share it, and find the documentary, watch it, learn so much. And let's take care of the earth and nourish the earth, and in that nourish ourselves and our animals, and just make the world more beautiful. If you love this podcast, please share it. Please subscribe, rate, review. I would love any of those things. I want this message to get to as many people as possible, and you are my vehicle for doing that. So if you love it, please share it, and let people know that you like it. If you don't like it, please let me know, because I want to make this what you need. And if you have anything to share, please let me know. Also, you can send me a message anytime. Send me a message on Good Pods, or on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm almost everywhere. So just please let me know what you have to offer. I would love to have a conversation with you. But here is the conversation with Pamela Tanner Boll and Adam Cohen and I, talking about To Which We Belong. Amazing, amazing documentary. Enjoy. Today we have a super special treat. I have not just one guest, but two guests. We are doing a sort of a promotion for a newish documentary called To Which We Belong, which if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me share posts. So we have Pamela Tanner Boll, who is the executive producer and director, and this was her idea to make this movie. And this is her third film that she is producing. And we also have Adam Cohen, who is a guest a couple months ago, I think. And I just have so much respect for him because he is so stinking smart and is teaching the next generation to appreciate and to understand gardening. So thank you both so much for being here. I've been so scared, and now that you're both here, I'm so thrilled. I can't even believe I'm having this conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
And Pamela is in here from Colorado, and Adam is here from Texas, and I'm in Maine. So, Pamela, what a film. So To Which We Belong is a documentary, and it's following 9 different farmers or ranchers who are practicing regenerative agriculture. Do you want to tell us about that, like about the film, about regenerative agriculture? Because I didn't know about it before this film.
Sure. Yes, I'd love to. Regenerative agriculture is a fairly new term, but it's just like a step beyond sustainable and about 4 or 5 steps beyond organic. What is it? It's where the agriculture, whether it's ranching or farming or gardening, by the way, big deal, is done so that the soil health is just as important as the health of the planet, the plants, okay, or the animals. If you've got animals that you're ranching with, or just a few goats in your backyard. Why does that matter? Because we're losing our soil, our topsoil, at an astonishing rate. And used to be that the soil organic matter in the world was about 7%, and now it's down to 1 or 2% in most places. And so no matter how much fertilizer we add to it, it's not going to retain its fertility at that rate. But here's the thing. We also have a problem with the climate getting hotter. We've got that. We're trying to keep it below a certain degree of Celsius. Don't ask me what it is because I forget. It's 1.5. And so there's 2 big things happening. One is we have, in some people's minds, it's less than 60 harvests available in the rest of time with the soil situation. The other thing that's happening is the planet is warming up, which is creating flooding, fires, very hot places that are normally cool. So it's like, oh my gosh, all this horrible bad news. What are we going to do? Well, it turns out there's one thing you can do that really addresses both of those issues. And it's not that hard to do. And it can be done today. And so that's called regenerative agriculture. And it's where it's basically, you don't disturb the soil. You plant seeds right into a mess. Okay. You don't like clear the soil and till it and make everything all neat and brown. And you don't have brown uncovered pieces of land, which if you ever fly over this country in the middle, you see all in the winter, you see all these big, it's like, that's bad because that soil blows away. But so you keep plants in the ground year round, and you plant a variety of plants outside of your plants that you grow for food or for sale. So why does that matter? Because plants are special. They, through something called photosynthesis, they draw down the carbon dioxide that's excessively in the atmosphere. That's our problem right now, mainly carbon dioxide. There's other greenhouse gases too, but that's the main one. Plants, including trees, their whole mission in life is to draw that carbon down into the soil where it feeds the plant, but also the microbial life of the soil. Who cares about that? Well, everybody should, because it's the microbes that actually create the soil fertility and also the water holding capacity of the soil. So in a drier climate where things are getting hotter, you can reverse that by having green everywhere, including in the middle of the cities, including Dallas, where you are, not Dallas, wherever it is, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
The more green things that you grow, whether it's directly for food or for shade or for animals, all that stuff, the less heat there is. Trees and plants change the environment. So it's really, that's why I did the film. That's what that means. It's way beyond sustainable.
It's amazing to think about, really. I mean, just the soil loss. I never really considered that. And if you're saying 60 harvests, 60 plantings, that I would imagine as it gets closer to 60, it's going to be like less effective. Or are you just saying you just have to like add so much stuff to it, like fertilizer, compost?
Fertilizer, compost, you have to add more and more and more amendments. And the fact is, those are expensive. Compost, not so much, but fertilizer is. But we've been on this fertilizer train for the last 50, 60 years. And we thought that was the best thing in the world because, gee, we were growing a lot of food. But it has an end point. Farmers find that they have to put more and more fertilizers on their crops and whatnot. The other thing that happens is the fertilizer is only 3 things. I forget what it is, but the fertility of the soil depends on tons of other things. The plants will grow with fertilizer, but they're not very healthy. And when you don't have healthy plants, guess what happens? You get lots of pests. So then you have to bring in pesticides. So you can avoid all that by keeping the ground covered year round. Whether, as I said, you're in a city with a backyard, or if you're in even in the tundra, you can keep things planted. It's crazy. It's kind of simple, but it's a new way of thinking.
Adam, do you know what those 3 things that are in? I know you do.
So,
in fertilizer.
I do. So obviously, yeah, my background is hydroponics, so we always mix our own nutrient solutions. So yeah, there's 16 elements that plants need for proper growth. The 3 that we provide primarily in fertilizer is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK. And those are the ones that are primarily listed on every major fertilizer that there is. The others, the micronutrients, are the ones that are, you can get them in fertilizers, but the reality, and this is part of what we're starting to learn with soil biology and with the interrelationships between the microfauna, the mycorrhizae, fungi, all of the other things that make up soil, is that the plants themselves can't actually pull those micronutrients out of the soil. They actually have to have that facilitated by the bacteria and the mycorrhizae fungi that actually will pull that out of the soil and will basically bring those to the plant in exchange for the sugar and water that the plants then provide to the soil.
Carbon sugars
So
from the carbon.
it is.
Yeah. Which is, so that's
And
kind of like a cool system, isn't it?
it's an amazing system, and it's one that, like you were saying, Pamela, you can grow a lot of plants if you just dump fertilizer on them, but they're not going to be as healthy. They're not going to be as robust. And you know, if you've grown roses in your garden, or you've grown just grass on your front yard, just dumping fertilizer on it will make it green and it will make it grow, but it's not resilient. It's not it's not fully what it was intended to be, because it just grows effectively in one dimension. It grows, but it doesn't have that deep root mass, and it doesn't have that resilience to handle drought or temperature events or somebody, kids running and playing football on the lawn during summer. It's just, we've lost a lot of that resiliency. And that's one of the things that I loved about your film, Pamela, was that idea of just regaining our connection to food, but also our connection to the environment that we are unequivocally still a part of, as much as humanity likes to think we're separate from that. So
Yeah.
I loved your film, and it was great.
Oh, thank you.
Smarty pants.
I loved your explanation.
That's so interesting too, that you were saying the resilience, and you talked about like soccer fields, and that is so, I've totally noticed that. I don't have kids, and so I don't do that, but like I always hear that they have to like find a new field for a while because they have to reseed the grass, and that is so interesting. I had no idea that was why. And then so we have in Maine, in Freeport, which is like 15 minutes from me, there's a place called, this is just my very tiny connection to this is, there's this place called the Desert of Maine, and it was, for hundreds and hundreds of years, or maybe even longer, it was farmed, and then they just farmed the crap out of it, and it just died. Like everything, it's literally sand everywhere. It's wild.
But you can bring it back. Because if you look at, I like the Chihuahuan Desert example, because that's a hot, dry area, and it was over-farmed, it was over-grazed, essentially. And Alejandro Carrillo, who's in the film, he now has 3 times the stock cattle. He raises cattle. And this, what used to be a desert, he's brought those grasses back. How did he do that? By bunching the cattle real close, mimicking the wildlife of old, the prey animals. They would bunch together, and they wouldn't stand around in one field and eat every single bit of green there, which is what we kind of do that because it's easier. So they have to be bunched and moving. And then they munch, and they don't, they leave their poop, they leave their pee, which acts as fertilizer. The dung beetles get busy and roll that into the soil. And so the grasses have come back in this area. They didn't do any seeding. There's a seed bank in most of the soil around the world, even in the sandiest regions.
A seed bank?
Yeah, the seeds are waiting in the soil, or even in the sand. What are they waiting for? Right. They're waiting for the right conditions to come to fruition. And those are enough water and enough microbial, like nutrients. So when you start running, in his case, cattle over that land, it brings those, there's more water in the holding capacity in the land. So they don't have to like do huge water, I'm going to say water aerobics, but not that. But, they don't have to like put water out on the land. They do have water troughs for the cattle. But how can that be in a quote unquote such a dry area?
Right.
Because that thing that we talked about before, which is, for every % of carbon dioxide you draw into the soil through growing lots of plants or having those plants fed by the cattle's dung and fertilizer in this case, for every % per acre, the water holding capacity of that acre becomes 25,000 more gallons of water. So you don't need the water, even in a very dry area. It's crazy.
That is crazy pants.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know that just with like compost and manure, I've always heard that you have to let it sit for a couple of years. And so this is fresh manure. And is that it's not harmful to this is all like new to me. This is really interesting.
Everybody. This is a whole new way of thinking. I mean, the other thing about grasslands, we have 5 billion hectares of grasslands in the world. Now that's about 10 billion acres. Okay, that's a lot. It's a third or maybe 40% of the world is grasslands. So you think about, well, you hear all the time cows are terrible, right? And they have methane and all this stuff. They're just awful, just awful. But in fact, when you grow cattle only on grasses and you keep them bunched tight together and moving to a new pasture every day or a new area every day, guess what? There's some evidence that there's bacteria in the soil that eats the methane. Now, this is, it's still a little controversial. I have some real fun science friends who are like, meh. But like 3 years ago, they didn't think regenerative agriculture was doing anything either. They're conservative, and I don't, that's good. But there is evidence that the methane issue is more of an issue when you're doing, you're putting them in the CAFOs for the last, to fatten them up on grains. And it might even be that they're not, well, they aren't supposed to be eating grain, but if they're on grasses, they're healthier. They don't need antibiotics.
Right.
And they're also returning fertility to the land. But the other thing is, grasslands aren't meant for farms. They don't have the right soil. And they're not that great for cities either, for the same reason. So we need these grasslands to work the way that they're supposed to. That's why I put the cows in this movie.
All right.
Yeah, I loved that part actually. The growth of grasslands is so fast. So if we want to look at the drawdown of CO2 out of the atmosphere, we need to be looking at those fast growing photosynthetic organisms that will pull that out. So in my world of hydroponics and aquaponics, there's a lot of research going into algae and spirulina, and you had the kelp farmer and such in the movie, and those fast growing algae that do the same thing, that can grow in areas that plants aren't super well suited for or such. But the grasslands, the grasses are going to grow significantly faster, significantly more vigorously than trees and such in many areas. And the amount of CO2, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the amount of CO2 from 1 acre of grassland that can be drawn down versus 1 acre of forest, the grassland wins every time because the grass grows faster.
Yeah.
And so
this is new. It's new information. More. People didn't even think that was a way to do anything about carbon sequestration, which, you know, Amy, I'm sure you know what that is, right? Carbon sequestration. It's where they're trying to store the carbon. And, you know, we talk a lot about trees, and trees are great, but then if they get cut down for lumber, well, there goes all the carbon back in the, you know. And if you grow trees in areas that aren't that, if you grow tree monocrops, yeah, that's not so good. Trees take care of each other. So you need to have them in actual forests. That I've been thinking about making a film about trees, but I think I'm done with that.
My husband's an arborist. He would be all over that.
Oh, would he really? Oh, well, trees are great, but you know, we do we do something in our culture around the world. Really, it's not just us in the U.S. It's everybody. It seems simpler to grow a monocrop, right?
Right.
It seems simpler to grow like acres of, you know, like energy companies. I know in Maine they do this. They plant trees when they're I don't know. I forget what they're doing, but it's a monocrop. It's all the same tree. And guess what? That's not a very healthy forest.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same with, you know, the thing about monocrops. So if you have only corn, soy, and wheat, or only trees, pests are like, I know where my next meal is. You got to kind of switch it up. Oh. So it's more complex, and people like things simple. So then that's where we get into the pesticide train, which is not good.
Right.
for us or the environment, and it's certainly not good for, we've got 70% of our birds are gone. The bees are in terrible trouble, and don't even get me started because it's awful, but it's reversible. And there are a lot of good people who are working on this. So it's not just food for people. We need all these different things to keep our planet working, to make, we have kind of a paradise, and you can't get rid of one thing without having an impact on other things. You might not want bugs on your vegetables. True. But if you take a minute and figure out what their enemies are, and if you mix the bugs up by having lots of different plants at different times, they grow healthier.
I seem to grow I grow vegetables that all the bugs like.
What are you growing?
Well, I'm growing. I'm nothing yet because there's still like snow, but we get cucumber beetles really bad, and squash beetles really bad, and we can't grow anything else.
There's a guy, Elliot Coleman. You follow him?
I don't, but I should.
Well, he's a founder, and he's in Maine. That's why I'm thinking about him. He's kind of the grandfather of farming on small bits of land in a way that's very efficient and effective without having to use pesticides and fertilizers and whatnot. And so if you're interested, you might want to look into that, because it's generally a problem of you need to pair plants with the right plants, and you can't plant the same thing every year. That's the other thing.
Yeah. It's tricky because I've also heard, and I know that you're supposed to move things around. And I've also heard, don't try to grow everything because, you're going to be overwhelmed. Pick a few things and that you can grow and do them well. And that is
to Adam, have a little tiny garden.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's why I'm following Adam. I was told after talking to Adam, I was like, I think I need to look into hydroponics.
Now, would you explain the benefits of hydroponics to me, because I don't quite understand it. I'm really
okay. So I'm a very big proponent of there is no single right solution.
Mhm.
There is a right solution for a given situation or a problem. Hydroponics is not going to save the world the same way that traditional soil-based ag, even regenerative ag won't save the world. Both can do really great things, but they serve certain purposes. Hydroponics is one of those that I don't. Okay, so let me back up a step. Hydroponics is just growing plants without soil. So you use an artificial environment, a trough or a bucket or a pool or something, and you provide the plants with all of the nutrients they need in a liquid solution. So a liquid fertilizer, and you give the plants the ability to grow. Hydroponics is great in urban areas, in areas where you have brownfields and you can't plant into the soil due to contamination or heavy metals or such. In extreme latitudes, north and south, where you have very few daylight hours for some of the year. So you have areas where the environment, for one reason or another, is not conducive to growing in
challenging,
soil.
very challenging. Got it.
If you're in the Salton Sea and you don't, you get 10 inches of rainfall a year, you're not going to be able to do traditional soil agriculture. But you can do hydroponics and grow just about any plant you want in that controlled environment. So all of the farming I've done has been in the urban center, so in the middle of metropolitan DFW. And we've produced lettuce greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, melons. I've done gourmet mushrooms in controlled environments and such. And basically the only thing I haven't ever grown is grain crops. Personally, I've never done anything. I know people that have grown rice in hydroponics and aquaponics, so they can be done. They're just not well suited because you have to grow a lot of them. But hydroponics is one of those that it's a great teaching tool, I've found. Every classroom in the country, in the world, could put a small hydroponic system in the classroom, and kids could see plants grow from seed to harvest. So one of the things that my mission has been is trying to reconnect people to their food and where it comes from. And if you have access to a farmer or a rancher, you need to go out and see their ranch. You need to go see them take care of their animals, and you need to see the giant machinery that runs these corn and soy farms. I mean, even though they're monocrops, it's impressive to see it.
Oh yeah.
Could be done better, admittedly, but it's still impressive.
Yeah.
But I have kindergartners at the school where I teach that they honestly don't know where a tomato comes from. They don't know how a broccoli grows. We're so divorced from our food, and if we can show these kids, show people where our food comes from and how it grows, then they're going to be more understanding to those greater issues when we say, hey, we need to transition our food production system in this direction or in these ways. Then they're going to have a frame of reference for why we should, because, oh yeah, we need to do that so that we can grow this. So that's kind of the reason that I've kind of settled on hydroponics. Also, because for whatever reason, I plant stuff in the soil and I kill it. I can't grow. I can't grow in the soil.
Believe me, I could talk to you about that. I tried to redo my backyard because I wanted to, I wanted to live the talk. And my grandmother was a beautiful gardener, and my dad grew up on a farm. And this is he grew up on a farm that was basically a regenerative farm, because they had everything. They had animals, they had corn, they had pigs, they did all their own butchering. Couldn't wait to leave, and that's how he ended up in Midland, Texas. He wanted to get rich at the oil fields, but whatever. Anyway, I guess they met in Dallas. But long story short, I thought, okay, I've been studying this stuff for 6 years, but I'm really good with indoor plants. But you should have seen the mess I made outside. I told the woman I work with, who's more of a lawn maintenance person, she said, so you want to take out the grass and put in this other stuff? I'm like, yeah, native plants, get more variety, which will draw down carbon. All of them draw down carbon, but they feed various different microbial life. We did it, but you know what happened? That grass was stubborn as all get out. I mean, I had weeds. I had little tiny plants like this in little tiny bunches with all the grass growing up. The second year we had to put cardboard over everything and kind of started over. And then I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't know how to do this. Either do I. I've created it looked like a weed patch, basically. So it's not
that's my garden.
Yeah, it's not as simple as people make it out. And some people, it's like cooking. Some people learned how to cook. Some people have to teach themselves. They watch a lot of YouTube or whatever, and then they get to be pretty good at it. But it's not something you just go and dig up your yard. You got to do it right. I'm not making it out like. That's why I went to the experts. I went to the actual farmers and and I realized I better stick to film, but I love this hydroponic thing, particularly in cities. And I love it for the, as you said, it's available, it's accessible. You can do that on your back porch if you want, right? You have to have some training, no doubt, about the nutrients that you add, and you have to go scrounge around for that. So I love it. And I also love it where there's brown fields where it's just the soil's contaminated. And gosh knows, we've got a lot of those in this country. Although you can plant those fields with certain kinds of things and it'll it'll grow. I think some of the cabbages and whatnot, those actually take
There's
that metal out.
there's a number of plants that the EPA has done research into, and in what you can plant in contaminated brownfields that will actually uh, clean it, that will actually pull
Clean
those
it
heavy
out.
metals and
Yeah.
such out of the soil. The problem is
But
that
you
they
don't want
don't
to eat that.
well, they don't detoxify it. They just concentrate it in their tissues. So it
Then you
cleans
have
the
to,
soil, but
yeah.
then you have to dispose of the plant tissues that have concentrated. So it there was a book that I read a couple years back. What was it? By Ray Anderson. It was called Confessions of a Radical Industrialist.
Mhm.
Um, and so short story was he owned a carpet company, a nylon carpet company,
Oh, I know this
and he
guy. He's
yeah
amazing. Yeah.
interface yeah.
Yeah.
And so he wrote this book about, well, I don't remember when it was, but he wrote it like 10 years before he passed away. And it was about 10 years into his company's mission to become to have a zero carbon footprint. To a petroleum based carpet company to have a zero carbon footprint, which is nuts. But one of the things he said in there is no way. We're
Exactly.
all on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So trash and waste doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to clean up these brownfields by concentrating these heavy metals, that's great. That cleans up the brownfield. But then what do we do with
Then
the
what do
heavy
you
metals?
do?
Yeah.
We still have to put that somewhere. So it's solving a problem by creating another problem, which
Right.
is not really a solution in my mind. Which is
Mm.
one of the things that I took from your film, Him, was that regenerative farming it's looking at the problem as well as the needs of our environment, of our society, of our culture, and saying, okay, how do how do we square the circle? How do we make everything work where nothing gets short shifted, nothing gets left
And
behind,
nothing's
and
wasted or thrown out.
and nothing is wasted? Exactly, because once again, there is no waste. There is no
Oh,
a
there.
way
Yeah.
to put
Yeah. There's
that
no way. I love
leftover.
that. Yeah.
So what I have always tried to do is try to teach that connection, that part of, okay, just because you win in the deal and the situation, is there somebody that's harmed? Is there something that isn't
Yeah.
benefited?
Mhm.
And that's the way I've approached my business. That's the way I've approached my relationships and my interactions is, the rising tide lifts all boats. And if ev- if somebody wins by somebody else losing, then in my mind, you didn't really win. If
Yeah.
if somebody has to lose for you to win, then you're doing it wrong. And so I love that, whether you intended it or not, that was one of the messages
No,
that I
it
got through the
definitely
movie, and I
is.
loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That was definitely the message. I mean, all my films, somebody said, I've made about 8 others also, but they're other people's initial ideas and then I help them. But in
Mhm.
every one of them, I think the thing that connects them all is the interwovenness of life, that we are very interdependent. We have, as humans, we think we're really on top of the chain and we're all special and stuff, but and there's a part of us that, that's okay, that's good. But if it's destroying, or, the oceans with the plastic, that's going to impact us. There's no getting away from that. So the thing that I have always, even as a very little girl, I drove my parents absolutely nuts, really nuts, because I'm like, well, why? Well, why are we doing, so my issue is also the same. How do you weave things together so that there's no waste and no one loses? And we recognize and acknowledge the sacredness, really.
Mm.
It's kind of this connection, this interconnectedness is a sacred, it's sacred to me. And so, yeah, that's why I'm not a farmer and I'm not a rancher, but I want people to know the sacredness of working in this way. And by the way, the farmers that I interviewed was like, yeah, it's a triple bottom line. We start using cover crops instead of fertilizer. We can reduce our fertilizer, and also we don't need the pesticides. After a couple of years, we're way down on all of that stuff. And guess what? That's a bottom line win for them. And you know, the Trey Hill, who has 10,000 acres on the Maryland area, he's like, it looks like a mess. My dad was never going to be okay with this. And he wasn't either. But you know what happened is it's that mess is not only feeding the soil, it's feeding the butterflies and the bees, all this other life. And he's a true believer now. And he still says, look at it, it's a mess, but look, we need to change our notion of what, what makes sense. Messes are not always messes. They're just life growing,
right?
Whether it's in the classroom or out on the field.
Absolutely.
Wow. So true. I mean, there's just I always hear, and this is just like my simple little home area, people say, it's expected that you clean up your yard at the end of the season and make sure to rake everything up and mow your lawn. And it just is. And then there are people that say, don't mow your lawn in, is it May? No mow May, I think, to encourage the butterflies and the flowers and stuff like that. But it's just it's such a battle to get that to that point. People are it's so ingrained in people to make it look so pretty, and but you're also not, there's like a downside,
not allowing
for sure.
For the life that we need, and that's where things have to change. And by the way, I am really interested in backyard gardens. We may very well make a series of videos for, I forget what the name of the organization is, but my co-producer who lives in Rhode Island has been in talks with this company that it's like a adult ed. They're all over the country. I forget what they're called. Agriculture extension schools, I think.
Oh, okay.
They're teaching people how to garden in their backyards.
The cooperative extension?
I don't know, but it's a big deal. It's in every little town in the country. So we may work with them to show people how to compost and how to grow both vegetables and flowers that are both bird friendly and bee friendly and human friendly. And they're really changing their minds about how things should be. This is a very influential organization. I can't remember the name, but we're not working with them yet. But I think, here's the thing. There's something like 40 million acres of lawn in our country alone. And if we could turn that into, even half of that, into a more natural habitat. Now, it wouldn't have to be all weeds like I made, because I didn't know what I was doing. But you plant part of your lawn in native plants, and that's going to feed the birds and the squirrels and all the worms, everything that makes life happen. It doesn't have to look that messy. And if we had 40 million acres, and you know how much carbon we could draw down? That's a fair amount. It's like for every acre we can. These farmers that I've been talking to are definitely increasing their soil organic matter, which is basically carbon, from 2% up to 7% within a couple of years. That's a huge carbon sink. And it's what makes that soil beautiful and black. Yeah, go do your compost for sure. But what you really need is to just put a lot of different plants in the ground. And that'll begin that process. So 40 million acres of lawn is a monocrop. And I understand the need to want things to be perfect. We don't have so much control in our lives, do we?
Right.
There's so many things where we have no control.
There are things we just have to learn to let go and let it be the way that it wants to be.
They love making their lawns beautiful because it gives them a sense of order. And there's it's chaotic out there. Life is hard. So I completely get this whole lawn thing. Believe me, I grew up in a lawn situation, even in West Virginia. But the fact is, if we can change the way people begin to think and add a little bit more life to the lawn, even if you just plant, I'm kind of tired, so I can't remember all the words. What are the things that bees love in the lawn, and they really spread like crazy? Dandelions.
Yeah.
And also the little white things. What are those?
Clover.
Clover's real good for soil, and
the ironic thing is that dandelion is actually it's a forageable green. You can eat it.
Very good.
It has more vitamin C than oranges, and it's a great spicy bitter that you can put in your salad mix. And I grew actually 2 varieties of Italian dandelion in my hydroponic farm to sell to high-end restaurants for part of their salad mix.
Probably got a good price.
Forage it. I did, but you can forage it right out of your yards.
You can.
But you're talking about the irony of the lawns and the order and all that. Right now in Texas, we're in the middle of wildflower season. So the bluebonnets and the Indian paintbrush, and they're all starting to come out. And I just think it's absolutely ironic because people are driving 45 minutes, an hour out into the country to go look at these fields of wildflowers. And yet driving through the city the other day, I watched somebody with a weed whacker cutting down wildflowers that were growing on the edge of his yard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second. This doesn't make sense.
Well,
we celebrate it out here, but we destroy it over here because we don't conceive of the fact that our yards could be the same as what we have out in the quote unquote country. And it's funny.
Well, it was only, the lawn situation. I think there's been some essays written about it. I find it fascinating. Started with the English country, like manor house. And so everybody wanted that, and that was like, it was a status symbol. So, and it remains so. But I also really do understand people who want to have things orderly and have only the grass and no quote unquote dandelion weeds or clover or whatever else you could easily have in your lawn. And also, let's face it, lawns are hardier than wildflowers. If you've got dogs or kids or whatever, you got to have someplace for them to throw a ball, right? Let's just be practical here. And you might even want to do some lawn tennis or whatever it is that people do in their backyards. Volleyball. Hard to do in a wildflower place, but that's why my suggestion is that you don't have to get rid of your lawn, but you can plant more plants around the perimeter and just leave a little there. And even the lawns will actually grow better with fewer needs for fertilizer if you allow clover, which is, by the way, not as nearly as, I don't know, reviled, I guess, as dandelions. But
and clover is soft. I would love to have a lawn of clover. It's so wonderful to walk on. Oh, I don't have a lawn right now. I have
but if you did,
grasses.
You could do it. You could add, there's also different kinds of grasses. You don't have to buy the turf, but everybody thinks that it's like it's comparable to buying like Duncan Hines cake mix, because everything's done. And people think, I'm gonna have to run around, get that chocolate from this store and, bars of chocolate, they don't know how to do that. And people are tired. They like to take the easy way and businesses understand this. So they do Duncan Hines or these other things, and God love them. I mean, I'm tired too, but I think when you have a bunch of people who have accepted some of these practices, things begin to change, in a neighborhood. You have it just around the perimeter, have those wildflowers, have a few berry bushes. Those will increase the carbon in the soil and also help the biodiversity.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's true. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a really big deal. Like you can do even just a corner of your yard or something like that, just to invite the insects and the beneficial bugs and etc. to your yard to pollinate things. Excuse me. And that's something that I talk about a lot. Like I don't want sustainability to be this big, like this heavy word. It's such a big word, and it can mean so many different things, but it also, you don't have to be super sustainable human. Like, we just need to be doing something, and, it doesn't have to be, my whole yard is clover now because I am the most sustainable, regenerative gardener there is.
That's great.
But plant a corner or like you said, plant on the outside. Like it just is, it's not hard, it's not expensive, and it will save you in the long run.
Yeah. The other thing is I always like the cooking analogy. Because I grew up with a mother who loved to cook and she was good at it.
So, I was going to say, you talk cooking all night long, Pamela. I'm here with you.
So, and everybody loves the cooking shows, right?
Yes.
So we all love to watch British Bake Off, and there's all kinds of people that are on, and we all love them. And some of them, it's like the competition and
Iron Chef.
I think people do like competition.
Yeah.
And there are winners and losers. I was thinking about your statement earlier, Adam. There's a place for that, but it has to be a chance to win the next time. It can't just be you're dead, win,
right.
You're dead.
Right. And there, as you said, there's a point for competition. And if you go into it for a competition, that's one thing. But in business, if my business is coming in to sell a widget to this market, the reality is that competition for a similar widget, that's going to make me make a better product. That's going to make me up my relationship building and my marketing. And without competition, I will become complacent. I will not do my best. I will not work my hardest. We need competition to make us reach our potential. And the reality is that the market is always bigger than you think it is. If you think a market is finite, you're not looking innovatively enough. You're not looking wide enough. So we can always deal with additional people doing it. Plus, that builds the whole resiliency and sustainability. If I'm producing food and I have a bad week and I have a contamination or I have a pest infestation or whatever, and I lose my whole crop. Well, if I'm the only one growing that crop, everybody is SOL.
Yeah.
But if there's 3 other farms that produce similar quantities in my area, well, then the market isn't interrupted.
Right.
But it works together. So instead of
things when you everything that you do. See, I find all of these things, one of the things that I think humans we're good. We have fun when we're being creative. And the creativity, that's why I started bringing up the cooking shows. Yeah, there's a recipe, but everybody has their own take on it, right? And creativity is, some people think, oh, I'm not creative, right? Well, creativity is saying, well, I never thought to grow that plant over there. Let's try it next to this plant. It's doing things a little bit differently and trying new combinations. It's creativity is seeing something. It's like, in my case, I'm a big dreamer. So I dream, and 3 of my movies have been started because of dreams, but that's just me. I take that seriously. I write them down, and then I'm like, I want to do something with that, you know? But it doesn't have to be a big C creativity. Like, I'm never going to be a concert pianist. It would be nice, but I won't be. But it's creativity. People are scared of it, but it's what makes life fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not just follow this recipe to the letter. What about if we add a few of basil leaves that I've got out on my back porch to this spaghetti sauce? It's not in the recipe, but I know that would be good, right? That's creative. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's celery. Celery goes in everything.
Well, there you go. I never thought, well, yeah. I mean, I used to put carrots and celery and onions very ground up in spaghetti sauce when my kids were little, because they weren't
sneak the vegetables in.
Yeah, you know, they weren't that interested. And now, oh my God, the three of them come to my house and they're like, leave the kitchen, Mom, because we're doing the real chef thing. They're hilarious. But
you mean you don't want me to cook? Okay.
I end up being their sous chef, though.
For sure.
I hand them the ladle or the knife sharpener. Yeah, it's funny. Anyway.
Oh goodness. I love that the word resiliency keeps coming up. I think that's so, it just seems like a really important word, and it's not something that we really think about when we're thinking about agriculture. I mean, now it's a newer word to agriculture that I'm aware of. But I think it's so, it's not just healthy, but it's resilient. Like, it will stand up to more traffic and
to pests, to heat, to storms. Resilience is being able to withstand by coming up with a slightly different way of being. You can't just sit in your house crying. I mean, we all do that. I'll do it. I was doing it this morning. I watched a movie that made me cry, and I'm like, yes, I like crying. But resilience is important. It's again, it makes life better also for everybody.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this has been like so trippy for me, and just like the most fun. I want to respect your time. I know, Adam, you're still at school, so I want you to be able to go home and like have dinner and stuff. But if you don't mind, I have a couple of questions, and they're not like super like intense questions. But so after watching the documentary, Pamela, what can we at home be doing to help to heal our soil? And I know we're talking about planting native flowers and plants as well, but what can we do at home?
There are, I just came across something recently. It's a government program, and I don't pay too much attention to what the government does because, well, mainly what you hear is they're not doing anything, but in fact, they do stuff. And one of their programs is to help farmers and ranchers and small plot farmers also to grow in this way. So you can go to that extension school program if you're, and learn something about that. But if you don't have a plot of land, that's fine. If you have, a fire escape, if you're in the city, I mean, New York City is where I at one point lived a long time ago, a lot of fire escapes, people growing huge amounts of plants. But you can also work in community gardens, even if you don't think you can grow a thing. Or you can, even if you don't want to grow stuff, if you're not into this, getting your hands dirty, you can find out what your city's doing in terms of, there's something called the America Beautiful program, and it's reaching every single state. And it's an initiative that's fairly new, or maybe it's a new iteration that is addressing climate change by protecting and preserving and helping 30% of the planet, and the land and the oceans. And there you can go and find out what they're doing in your town and get involved. You can do stuff like write your congressperson. It's like everyone says that, but they actually listen. It's real interesting. And, in the latest, this new Biden thing, he had that, what was it called? Something reduction. I never get the terminology right. It's a reduction, something or other, but there is so much climate stuff in there. It's crazy. Like agricultural schools are getting $25 million grants to teach people how to do this new ranching and farming and also forestry. You can go to, there's a lot of groups that are really in the thick of this, and you can support them. You can read their literature, tell other people about it. 3 of them that are in our film are the Savory Institute, which is basically they help ranchers around the world ranch more effectively, even in very dry areas. They've got 70 hubs around the world. You can go see what they're doing and seeing if there's something in your area to help them. And then the other person who's in our film is a guy from the Nature Conservancy, which is all over the world also. And there's just local organizations, there's cities that have, back in Boston and where I used to live, that they had Arbor Days, and they had cities designated as being tree cities. There's so many things you can do. You can join a CSA. You can get your fruit and vegetables and from a local farmer. That's hugely impactful. Some farmers that I've actually featured in the last movie I did, which was called A Small Good Thing, they're in Massachusetts. And they have 4 acres, and they have, I can't remember how many people they have, not that many, but they're making $100,000 a year easily on 4 acres from CSA participation. So you help those folks, and you're doing a good thing. And all you have to do is be a good consumer. Oh, and speaking of being a good consumer, the labeling of grass-fed beef is going to be changing, and it will be more specific and more, if you're a meat eater. But you can buy that beef. It's not that much more expensive. And so you buy less, but it's good. And it's better for the planet. It's better for you as a person. It's just like, I don't know how old you all are, but in the 70s, organic was like a hippie thing. In the 70s, it was like, oh, nobody's buying that stuff. It's all expensive and who cares? And I'm sure what we're doing is fine. Well, now you get it at Walmart at a discount. I mean, it's reasonably priced, I'm saying, or Costco. This is what's happening with regenerative foods. So be a good consumer. Tell your grocery store that you want this kind of, vegetables, these kind, from local farmers. That's like going into your grocery store and talking to the people who run it. They're really interested in what people want. So
that's a good point. Thank you. And in my head the whole time I was thinking, join a CSA, but like for our own gardens, is it like beans, peas that add the right nutrients into the soil?
Well, that's one thing.
Beans.
Yeah.
Beans. Okay. And then get some cover crop, like some green manure for planting afterward. I'm always too late. Like I have winter rye seeds, and I have clover seeds, and I have buckwheat, and like I have all these seeds, and by the time I pull my last plants out, the snow is coming. And I'm always too late.
Yeah. In your area, you're far north, you got to plant it. But really, if you're at all interested, Elliot Coleman is kind of a grandfather of these cold crop plantings. Yeah.
Right. And then, so my other question is not super serious, but like, is there like a club that the farmers and ranchers are in, that they're doing this, like this organization? Is it like, is it like a social media? Do they have like a Facebook page? And they're like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. I wish I could tell you where they are, but you know what you can do? look up, anybody can do this. There's so many people that superstars and regular farmers are on social media talking about these practices, and you can join them. And just, it's some of the superstars in this regenerative movement are Gabe Brown, and Alejandro Carrillo is one, but there's a group of farmers who are younger, and I forget the acronym, but it's in the Northeast, and they're very, very active. So, and they're all doing these new practices because it works. And these are on 2-acre farms, 4-acre farms. They're not big necessarily, but they're reviving their communities through reviving their practices. And it's really exciting. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. To speak to that, Amy, most states will have an organic farmers association specific to that state. And if somebody wants to find something along the lines of regenerative ag or kind of these newer, quote unquote, newer methods, that's probably one of the best places to start a search in your given state. Is the people that are in the organic farming association are going to be the ones that are more likely to be there or beyond. As Pamela was saying, that regenerative agriculture is multiple steps beyond what is listed as organic. Right. But obviously the people that are already doing organic are going to be more interested in that. So they might know, hey, well, I'm not doing it, but so and so, 2 miles away or 2 hours away, whatever it is. The other is that there's an organization, the Young Farmers Association.
Oh, that's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
those guys.
They're national, but they have state chapters as well. So those two, and Young Farmers is great for. And actually, Young Farmers, I learned, is everybody up to 45. So Young Farmers is 45, or I believe they've actually recently kind of adjusted it to Young in Farming. So if you're, 5 years or less as a farmer, even if you're 70, you would classify as a young farmer if you have no background in it. But they have huge resources for people who want to get into agriculture or want to transition what they are doing to a more sustainable regenerative purpose. So those are definitely some resources to start. Also, as Pamela said, reach out to people on social media. If you see somebody on social media or in a movie or whatever that's doing it, reach out to them.
Oftentimes they're happy to talk. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've never had somebody contact me where I didn't give them at least 15, 20, 30 minutes of my time to answer questions. Never. So, always reach out. The worst they can do is say, hey, I'm too busy. Call me some other time. So,
or they'll tell you somebody else. They'll tell you where to go. Yeah. And you can also find out a lot of information by going to your local farms that have CSAs. Where do they belong? What chapters do they have? Where do they, hang out? Not everybody has the connections, but a lot of them do.
Yeah. Go to your farmers markets. Make friends with your farmers.
Yeah.
Talk to the farmers. The farmers are going to be the best source of knowledge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And support the farmers markets. We need to spending 20% of our grocery income at farmers markets would increase the viability of local agriculture across this country,
Huge.
Probably 100-fold. It's amazing how much that would benefit, how many more jobs that would create, how many more local farms that could support. It's huge.
And it'd make a healthier climate too, because there'd be more people growing things in cities and near cities, etc. What's
absolutely
an interesting little fact is before the Second World War, I think it was, or maybe it was before the 50s, people spent a lot more money on their food. We have created very cheap food, but in some ways that's great, but we're paying for it in other ways. Our health has deteriorated. So it used to be a huge part of your budget would go for food. So
somebody once showed me a statistic where food and medical benefits
Oh yeah.
If you look at the combined cost,
Mm,
it's about the same proportionate to inflation across the last 100 and some odd years. But if you break that down into what's spent on food and what's spent on medicine, it's gone from being mostly food and little medicine to the exact opposite. We the cheap food has come at a cost that
absolutely.
is
Cost to our
is
health.
not very obvious.
It's not,
Absolutely.
and people don't talk about it. And look, everybody likes their potato chips or whatever. I like Fritos, but
Mhm,
that's not really healthy food, And
mhm.
when you have farmers, it's kind of fun to go to a farmer's market. All the
Absolutely.
we're out. It's like a fair, an old-fashioned fair, right? So support those folks.
Mhm.
They're the cutting edge. They're and eventually it'll get into these whole ideas. We'll get into I got to tell you that I work a lot with people who are big they're bridge builders. They like to work with the big businesses. I'm not one to say Monsanto is the devil, although frankly, they need to get out of the business they're in for right now. But it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people who are working with the Walmarts of the world and McDonald's to try to get, in their cases, more certified regeneratively grown food, and also beef and chicken. Chicken's a big one. Let's not forget chicken. It's not grown very well,
Mhm.
but those people are paying attention.
That's cool.
Consumers matter. So be a good consumer.
What a great message that is. I mean, it doesn't sound like super impressive, but it's so powerful, really. I mean,
Really is.
there's like the vote with your wallet, or just be a good consumer. Know what you're eating, know what you're consuming, and fight for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Even
awesome.
just go talk to people. It's the farm, not the farm, but the food industry is actually paying attention. A lot of these huge companies are paying to have regeneratively grown grain so that the rainforests down in Brazil are not cut down. It's big. They're investing in that kind of grain that's grown regeneratively, where the land has been restored and not, been become like a desert, like you said, in Maine.
Right? So I could sit here and listen to you guys talk all night. I'm sure you don't want to do that, but I'm having a blast. So I've asked all my questions. Adam, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Honestly, the only question that I had, and maybe you'll just tell me to go contact them and look them up, but the company Indigo Ag, where they were talking about actually working with the farmers to market the carbon credits to industry,
Yeah,
that
okay.
was amazing.
It
That
is
was
amazing.
absolutely amazing.
And I love the guy who ran it. We had him in the film. Here's what happened, however. They came from a health, or he came from a health background, and
Mhm.
concepts were good, but they had never worked with farmers and they failed.
Oh no.
Yeah, not out of
Okay.
villainry. It was out of not knowing,
Just not knowing the market and the industry.
not knowing the market. So everything that the guy that we had in the film said was absolutely right, but they're no longer, they've moved away from that business. There are other people who measure carbon in the soil, and I can't think, like the guy that Trey Hill was using. Can't remember,
Okay.
but he just had to ask a whole bunch of questions. They asked a whole bunch of questions, and then he got 100,000 in cash. And I can't remember the names of those companies, but
All right. Well,
look for it.
well,
Indigo
I'll do some
so
research.
clear what they were trying to do, and it was so right, but it ended up not they were promising more than they ended up being able to deliver.
Mm.
Well, that's unfortunate, but
It is,
you
but
can't make
we're in the
you can't
Wild
make the
West.
omelet without you can't make the omelet without breaking the eggs. So you got to at least try it.
This is a whole new thing. Everybody else, by the way, are doing great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I always ask everyone at the end of my episode, what does the word sustainability mean to you? And I know I said earlier, it's just a really big, it's a really big word, but it means something to everyone, I think. And so Pamela, what would you say sustainability means to you?
Well, sustainability means that we can continue as humans to live on a planet that supports not only our life, but the life of everything that we depend on and that depend on us. And that includes restocking the oceans. The oceans are in trouble. It means, so it's that interconnected. To me, it's more everything, understanding that everything is interconnected. That will make us be able to sustain life on this planet. I don't believe in zooming off to Mars, by the way, to live. That's just not.
Same.
I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? Let's play here.
We've got work to do.
We got work and we can have fun with it. We should have fun with it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it's so true. Everything is connected, and we just need to respect that, I think, and understand that.
Yeah. Not just give it lip service. Yeah.
Yeah. And Adam, I know I asked you this a couple months ago. Any changes to your thoughts on sustainability?
I mean, I'll just echo what Pamela said. Sustainability is the ability to sustain life, to sustain community, to sustain business. If one of the pillars falls, the whole tripod comes down. We need to sustain everything, and building up one without building up the others creates an imbalance. It creates a weakness, and you can do good for business by doing good for the environment. You can do good for the environment while doing good for people. It's not a win-lose. It's a win-win-win if you are willing to do it right. So that's it. That's all it is.
Awesome. I love it. And Pamela, how can people find your documentaries or find you and follow and find out what you're up to?
We have we typically, I've worked with the same team for the last 20 years. Isn't that crazy?
Awesome.
It's really fun.
That's so
really
great.
fun. I have two amazing, extraordinary women. And anyway, so our social media on this film is done by we have To Which We Belong social media. It's Instagram, Facebook, etc. So you can find out what we're doing, and we post. People say it's a really good site if you want to learn about stuff too. So we have that, but our film, To Which We Belong, is on a number of platforms, Apple TV, I believe, and Prime Video. I can't remember all of them. It's a bunch. We just got a new distributor, so we can, if you have, it's also sold to universities and libraries and whatnot. So sometimes you can get that there. My other films you can find out about, probably the best way would be to go to my website, which is mysticartists.com. I'm not sure how updated it is because we pay more attention to the individual films.
Sure.
If you want to learn about me and what I've done, you can go there.
mysticartists.com.
You can look up my name. It seems like you can just do that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And Adam, how about you? How can people find you? Because you are a wealth of knowledge, and you've got big stuff going on.
I do. I have more than a few projects that I'm going. I still got to finish building the house, but it's getting there. So my website is it's more built than it was the last time we spoke, but it's still got a lot to build on it. It's greenphoenixfarms.com. I will be putting up the full development and build and such of my new farm, fully transparent on there. I've got some aquaponics and hydroponics and such up there. I have a small YouTube channel and I'm on Twitter. You can find me on both of those at I am Adam Cohen. And there's links on the Green Phoenix website as well. So I've got some good hydroponic videos on the YouTube, and a couple of links can take you to some manuals for DIY stuff if anybody wants, or just send me a message. I'll answer any questions.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you both so much for being here. Adam, thanks for being my co-pilot. I appreciate all that you are. And Pamela, thank you so much for the documentary and for your time tonight. I'm so freaking grateful to know more about it.
I'm grateful too. It's wonderful to be in conversation with people about these things. So thank you for your work.
My goodness.
Adam, so fun to talk to you. You're doing
absolutely
so many interesting things. Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Pamela, and thank you again for making this movie. I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
Cool. All right, you guys.
Definitely. Thanks, Amy.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
I just want to take a moment and thank my guest again for speaking with me and sharing such great information. I also need to thank Buzzsprout for hosting this podcast, for Jane Bolduck and her amazing music genius, for Becca Coffron and her beautiful artwork. And I'd like to thank you for listening. Please check out the show notes. I'm going to have links posted in there if you would like to follow this guest and learn more about them. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
There'll come a day, my mama told me, when I find love to have and hold me, a heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, how do I get there from here? 'Cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. We'll find a way to soothe the sickness. We'll heal the hate with sweet forgiveness. Wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. When that state of grace has finally found me, well, there'll be music, ooh, and good friends around me, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder,